Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you. You can't hear us.
Mm-mm.
But it says you're in the host. Everyone can see and hear you on all of our screens.
Okay. Well, I can hear me coming over line, so not quite sure what to do here.
It worked this morning when we were on.
Yep, it did.
And you ask her if her computer speakers are turned up.
We can hear you.
Oh. That's exactly what it is.
Bingo!
I love you. All right.
That's some funny.
So, sometimes it just takes the whole village to make things work, right?
Hey, sometimes it's the simplest thing, you just gotta
function. There we are. Now we got it. Woo!
Woo! It's little things in life.
Oh my goodness. I had shut it down because I was on a call before. So, well, hi everybody and welcome to Industry Experts. Today we are with Abbie, Marie, and Max from the Fan Agency. Say hi, girls.
Hello, everybody.
So we are going to talk today title. And we are going to let Marie do an introduction of the company.
Good morning. My name is Marie Combs. I work for Hillsborough Title. I am going on, I believe, 12 or 13 years. We originated in Plant City almost 30 years ago. We have over 30 locations throughout the state of Florida. They're all under the umbrella Florida Agency Network. So with that being said, Abbie handles Infinity Title and St. Pete, and Max does Paramount and Hillsborough Title, and I cover Hillsborough Title Brandon all the way down to South Shore. You want to do an introduction, ladies?
Hi, I'm Max Jackson. I focus in the New Tampa, Wesley Chapel areas, actually all throughout Tampa Bay, but we kind of stick to our little sections and our little areas. I work for Hillsborough Title in the New Tampa area, and then I also represent Paramount Title in the Carrollwood area.
Morning, everybody. I'm Abbie Sasser. I represent the Tampa Bay Title brand in St. Pete area, and then also Affinity Title in the Clearwater, Palm Harbor area.
Good. Thank you, ladies. I am going to talk about the app Notarize that has become the talk of the industry. It's remote online notarization, also known as RON, which is one of the new ways to closings through your tablet, mobile device, or computer. It was designed for notarizing through a mobile device, wherever the location you were. Any documents can be notarized except for being married, which that's totally understandable. I've had a lot of agents call me in the past couple months asking me if I could actually notarize something for a client, and I would share the app Notarize. I suggest everybody download it. And if anybody asks for a notary, share the app, but it's also going to be a way of one of the closings that you're going to have coming up in the near future. I'm asked a lot when I get a new contract, the agent will say, I want to use the RON closing. And the only way that is allowed is if the buyer's lender is set up and ready to go through remote online notarization. So with that being said, everybody download the app, Notarize, it's free. You'd be surprised how many times people are going to ask you, do you know a notary, if they haven't already during this time we're in right now. And start using it, set up your account, and then you'll be one step ahead when you get instructions on your closing is going to be done through RON.
So that sounds awesome, guys. Who knew, right?
It's an awesome app.
Yeah, definitely download the app. I mean, it's called Notarize, right?
Exactly. And it's so simple. You just create an account, you take a picture of what you want notarized, you send it in, they send you an email back with a link and a time, and then you hit that link and it brings you into a session. You go through some identification verifications, and it's very simple. To have something notarized is a little pricey, $25, but considering the conveniency of it, it's worth $25.
It is definitely a convenience fee. I mean, and sometimes you have to run to the bank or you have to find a local notary just to be able to sit at your computer so that I can keep rolling.
Exactly.
It's huge.
It is.
So definitely download the Notarize app on your phones. Is that both Apple and Android?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So we're going to now talk about closing processes, right?
Absolutely.
So Ron, who's taking that one, or are we just going to share back and forth?
So Ron, like Marie was saying earlier, is not accepted by all lenders yet, and they're very much so working behind the scenes to get aligned so that they can accept remote online notarization as a form of signing documents. We have been doing it for a couple of years now. We're super excited that the industry has kind of pressed the fast forward button in this regard. It's a very secure process. I know there's always the concern about security when it comes to signing and when it comes to fraud and mortgage fraud and all of that. So I personally am a Ron signer now, and I've always, helped the girls out, help my inside team when we get really busy to help sign people. And I feel like the security measures that we use for remote online notarization is much more secure than an in-person notary. Literally, the entire session is being recorded. So every word that is said, every action of a signing it's all being recorded. So if you're committing mortgage fraud, you're literally being recorded doing it. Yes. So I think that the security that is put in place is far, far, far more secure than an in-person notary.
I love that.
Abbie, what have you experienced in your office with Ron signings? Are they happy about them with your clients, or are they, how are your clients accepting them?
I think a lot of people are interested in doing them, but again, like I think is what you touched on with the fact that they're not necessarily available to everyone yet, depending on the lender, and that's specifically because they're having to basically upload their systems. And the part that is the hard part for the lenders right now is actually where it's called an e-vault, and that's where they're actually going to store all of the documents that are signed online. And with that, it's not something that can just happen. Like the systems have to integrate, they have to see if they're going to work, if they have to get a whole new system. So I think as we progress in this, I think you'll see more lenders coming on. I know for us specifically in our market, the biggest one that we're going to touch on next that we're utilizing is the drive-through closings, which is something that we creatively came up with in response to the fact of obviously the pandemic, but the fact that not all the lenders were able to get on board quite yet with the remote online notarizations.
So what is the drive? Well, you brought it up. What is the drive-through closings look like?
The drive-through closings.
Kind of like pull up to our window and say, "I'll take one of those."
Yeah, exactly. It'll take a house coming right up. So what happens is we basically send out the closing package ahead of time to the clients. And then we call them on the phone and we go over the documents. We give them the option of going over the documents on the telephone. And then whatever they're able to sign themselves, they can e-sign at that time or print the docs off and sign them. And then they'll schedule an appointment to come to our office so that when they get there, one of the girls will come out to their car. They have masks and gloves on. They give the client who's in their car still a pair of gloves to wear, sanitized pens and clipboards. and they only have to sign the documents essentially that they weren't able to pre-sign, and that require the notary. And then from there, if they quick sign, they shouldn't be there for any longer than 15 minutes or so, if that. And the girls go back in the office, and then they send them a copy of all the documents that they've signed, and they're done. I mean, it's become such a thing of convenience for a lot of people. And I think it's interesting that the fact that this pandemic has brought on this new option that people actually like, and that I don't think that we're going to be able to get rid of or go back from, because it's just so nice. You don't have to sit around and wait for funding and sitting at the table. And if for instance, there's something that's missed, on the document, maybe they want their initial on the deed and it's not on there. I mean, we'd have to stop the closing before and go back and change it and come and sit back down, or if the figures were wrong. I mean, this gives people the opportunity to look over everything so that no one's waiting around for anything. I just think it's so convenient, and it just streamlines the whole process.
So, prior to COVID, Marie, I'll ask you this question. How long did it take to do a closing?
It could take 45 minutes up to an hour and a half. And if you had a reader, and we do get some of those who come in and actually want to read all the documents, that can go up to 2 hours.
Okay. So we just took the closing process from the COVID pandemic from an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, if we have that very analytical person, to 15 to 20 minutes.
Correct.
That's huge, ladies. Like that is like, let's just sign and move on. I love the idea. So that is so super cool.
When you use the Ron closing, it's pretty much, you can't make a mistake, because sometimes signatures or initials are missed in a live closing. And then we have to go back. You can actually sign on the notarized app on a Ron closing if you missed a signature. And
Gotcha.
Once that last document is signed and it is sent, that file funds in how fast, Max?
Within minutes.
Within minutes.
Wow.
The lender automatically gets the documents dispersed to them. As soon as everyone's finished, whoever needs one of the documents that's being signed, it automatically gets dispersed to the recipient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know you.
I'm sorry. So in either case, I didn't want to confuse anyone with that, because we kind of jumped back to Ron. So in the case of the drive-through or the Ron, the clients are now getting the documents ahead of time.
Correct.
And then it basically cuts down the times on with either option.
Yeah. I've actually found that, especially first-time home buyers that don't really know the process, yes, they really appreciate being able to go through the documents, write down their questions. I've called a lot of people and I've gone through documents with them, and they feel more at ease when they come in and sign. And I also feel like they're able to ask more questions in an environment that's not as stressful, because I've noticed that when you sign people and they're a first-time home buyer, they can be a little nervous. I know I was, and I was kind of scared to ask questions when I was sitting at the closing table. But there's something about being in the comfort of your own home and being able to review the documents that gives you that sense of ease. And it makes the closing process, a little more climatic and in a good way, so that you have that good feeling after you close.
So I know, like prior to COVID becoming a factor in our marketplace, you guys were just really starting to roll this out gently and, massage it. But I would imagine that this has just like, boom, like made you move faster. And you were so poised for what happened to be able to accommodate your clients. I think that is such a cool place to be in the marketplace. You've got a very smart owner.
Yes,
absolutely. I'm so happy he loves tech. He loves technology.
He does, right? Yeah, he's always on the cutting edge, and he's always first to the market, which I think is rather cool too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we wanted to talk. We talked about the drive-through closings, mobile notaries. We talked about what about like in-office appointments? Are you still doing in-office appointments,
We
Abbie?
absolutely are. Oops, sorry, go ahead,
That's
Abbie.
okay.
We absolutely are. And in our office, we have the door locked, so you have to set an appointment.
Mhm.
And when you arrive to the office, we are expecting your arrival. You can either call and we'll come out and open the door for you, or we have a doorbell there as well. We also have somebody kind of manning the door. She can see the door from where she sits. We have hand sanitizer right there by the door. And if you're sitting down at one of our tables, we sanitize them before and afterwards. Um, Everybody is given a pair of gloves to wear. Everybody's given a pen that they take with them, and everyone is sitting, spaced apart with enough space between one another to practice the CDC social distancing guidelines. But yeah, we still do allow it. We only want the signers to come in. If they have children, we ask for them to opt for the drive-through signing if they have to bring their kids with them. Unfortunately, we know it's a little bit harder to find childcare these days when it comes time to doing things, because sometimes you are depending on your grandmother or grandma or grandpa, but now you don't really feel comfortable taking your kids over to see grandma and grandpa, so you have to bring them to your closing. We still can accommodate you. We just ask for you to opt for the drive-through signing instead of the in-person inside of our office. But yeah, I mean, it's somewhat similar to the way we did things before. However, it's a much quicker process because we're still going over documents prior to them coming in, and they're still able to review them prior to them coming in.
So I love that. And you guys, as I'm out in the community now, a little more than what I was, people are out there, no masks, they're hugging each other already. So it's good to see and hear that you're practicing the CDC guidelines, because I don't think it's something that we should stop practicing. I think we really need to adhere to those guidelines and really be respectful of them, unless you would like to be locked down again. I mean, just saying, I don't know. I'm not for that latter part. Our company, Florida Building, also is adhering to all CDC guidelines. We have to wear masks. We have to sanitize anything that we touch going into the building. We put booties on when we come into your house. So we're doing everything we can as well to make sure that there's no infectious limitations are being respected.
And Dusty, with that, what about when you are doing the inspections? Are droves of people still showing up, or you just want the homeowners there, or the buyers, or?
Well, they are starting. They are starting to actually return to old practices where they bring mom, dad, grandma, Pat. Yeah, so
I think it's a little soon.
We
It's a little
would
soon.
prefer we
Yeah.
would prefer that, our office is still educating you on what CDC guidelines state, and ask you to please, if you're coming, stay in your cars. Once you actually we're done with the inspection, we will come out within a safe distance and review our findings with you. But bringing you into the house is something that we are not allowed to do. So you can show up, you can sit there for an hour or two until we complete the inspection, and then at the end we'll do a wrap up. Or you can be time conscious and come the last 45 minutes, and we'll do the review when we come out of the home. So thanks for asking, Abbie.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. So updates on what's happening in each of your specific markets. So I'm going to start with Abbie. I know you just got numbers, so we'll let you go ahead and talk about what's going on.
Well, it's interesting, to say the least. I think we've been very fortunate. Our company has been very fortunate, I think, because we got out ahead of everything, because Aaron had already put things in place. We already had the systems to do this. The only, I think, creative response was really the drive-through closing part for us. It's interesting to me that our numbers really haven't dropped too much. Our order count is still great. I was kind of worried. Somebody had asked me that question very early on, a month or so ago, like, how does it look? How is it going with you? And I'm like, honestly, like our order count seems good. Like, our data for us personally is always lagging from when we get obviously the order in to when it closes. I've seen contracts cancel, but then they all have new buyers again. I mean, I think in Pinellas, the stats came out yesterday and it's close. It's all around like a drop in 30% of what is available on the market, but the same amount of buyers are still there. So now you have a supply and demand issue. So even with all of that, we are still getting a great deal of orders in. And I think it's because it's been our response to this pandemic and being on it and being forward moving that we haven't really lost any momentum. So I'm happy to report that. And the drive-through closings for us seem to be the closing of choice with our clients in the St. Pete market. So,
question for you, Abbie. Do you think the mobile closings will be something, as well as Ron, that will be around after the whole thing returns to whatever the new norm is?
Oh, I think it's just going to keep pushing even more. And I think we had a conversation, the three of us offline yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that, especially with the drive-through closings and people getting comfortable with the e-closings, and maybe that would even be something that people are going to get more comfortable doing. And that's where it's not an e-closing with Ron, but just to be able to sign the documents through DocuSign or whatever on their own. We think that's going to kind of push forward a little bit more. Eventually, it's all just going to progress. And I think that it's good. I think it's good, the changes that are happening, especially even for, I know the girls in my office. I think about all the times that clients would be like, I can't get a hold of your closer. I need to have this question answered. And it was like the last day of the month and she has 8 closings and she's back to back. And, when one takes an hour to 2 hours with funding, and by the time you're done, especially if it's a lender deal, it's like she doesn't have time to even answer questions some days. So like, this is like, wow, what a breath of fresh air for the people in the office, just to be able to have that time to kind of gain some time back and to really be able to answer some questions ahead of time and be a little more proactive all over it. It just makes the client experience and our relationships with our clients so much better.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
So not everything that comes out of COVID is going to be bad.
No.
Yeah, I think there's a silver lining.
Yeah.
All right, Marie, what about your market, honey?
As Abbie said, our market has been pretty consistent. And I apologize, I have too many devices going here. We haven't had too many cancellations. And as she said, if a contract cancels, there's a buyer right behind it. We have had several extensions, but we've been pretty busy. And the feedback on the drive-through closings, we've actually have had agents request we keep it going. They like it. The clients, again, especially the first-time home buyers, they are enjoying the time and the comforts of their home, reading their documents without somebody sitting across the table feeling pressured to sign something. But we've been pretty steady. The girls are doing the same procedures as sanitizing, locking the doors, appointments only. But surprisingly, it didn't change our numbers too much. And there's more buyers than homes. So if
the real estate market,
right,
it's still moving, right?
There's a buyer waiting for it to fall through.
Yeah, it's multiple offers right now, right?
Yeah. Because I've had agents say, my buyer said, if that contract on that house falls through, let me know. Yep. So it's interesting on how things have changed, but it's been kind of good. I mean, our business is still steady, rocking and rolling.
That's all we can hope for.
Yeah.
So, and Max, what about in your territory?
I mean, my market is pretty reflective of Abbie's and Marie's. There's been a little dip, but nothing super concerning as of right now. Like Marie and Abbie were saying, we've seen cancellations, but there's literally a buyer right around the corner and we're getting the earnest money deposit within days that it cancels. Sometimes we can't even get the cancellation fast enough because they already have another offer on it. So, I mean, in that regard, I think buyers that were already planning to buy a house and had already saved up their money and still have their job, they're still looking to purchase the home because they want to have somewhere secure to live, depending on what happens, in the future. So I feel like, they really want to have that security of owning their home.
Yeah, a roof over your head is not being taken lightly anymore, right?
Yeah. And we've had a really, really great response to Ron. In my market, we've had quite a few investor clients that live elsewhere that own homes that, even before the pandemic, they were on the market. And when everything kind of first started and we had the shutdown, if you will, we were still able to close their deals and they were still able to sign their documents from Canada, from Germany, from Turkey. And it's been a really great tool for agents that, might not have had that advantage, prior to. So we've been gaining new clients from it as well. So, I mean, I think it's really great and it's definitely been very well received. The platform that we use, Notarize, is super, super user friendly. The Germany closing that I was talking about was with an elderly lady, and she was very, very concerned that she just would not be able to do it. And we were able to walk her through everything. It did take a little bit longer, but you know what? She sold her home and, all the documents got signed the appropriate way that they should have been. So
that is cool. So it seems as though business is pretty much normal. And I know that there's a dip. We saw a dip. I know that you've saw a dip. But the main point that you need to take away from this, those that are listening, business is still happening, right? It has not shut down. There are, and I didn't really understand this. I was listening to someone talk the other day. There are, families who are getting new orders. We live in Tampa and we have a base here. They're going to be getting new orders. You have people who are dying and they can't afford to stay where they are. You have divorces happening. That didn't stop just because COVID came into play. So there are life, huh?
I was saying it probably went up since COVID, the divorce rate.
People are having babies. I mean, they need more space. The whole thing.
Yes. My daughter gave birth on the Friday before it shut down. She went into the hospital, gave birth to a beautiful little girl, came out Monday, and everything was shut down. So you talk about freak out. It definitely happened. But, we've survived. We're all good. Baby's thriving. Mama's thriving. She's back to work. So all is good. Life is just going on. It just looks different, right?
Well, congratulations, Dusty.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. So, ladies, can you share a tip for your clients? Marie, would you like to start?
Yes. When you submit a contract for us to close, I would suggest start communicating with the buyer's lender and get that closing, the way you're going to close it set up in advance. Because if that lender doesn't have that vault ready to do the RON or e-closing, then we will have to do the drive-through or the appointment inside. I just think getting that information to the processor in the very beginning or as soon as you can, it will be easier for the closing when it arrives, that everybody's on the same page. Because we do have agents the day before closing go, oh, I want to use the Notarized app and go close through Ron. And at that point, it's too late if the lender isn't allowing it.
Yep.
May I ask for some clarification? So I've heard Ron, e-closing, and mobile, right? Drive-through. So are they all working hand in hand? Are they different? Is Ron e-closing? Is that the full name of it? What like, can one of you?
Ron is for remote online notarization.
Okay.
Right. And e-closing is where the lender accepts electronic signatures. And mobile closing is a notary going out to the client and closing at their home through a remote notary.
Okay. Thank you. Because I was confused.
Yeah, we have 4 types of closings. So yeah. Yep.
All right. And Max, what about you? What about a tip?
Kind of to piggyback off of what Marie was saying when it comes down to lending, if you're taking your buyers around and they're going to put in an offer soon, it's a really great idea for them to call their bank and figure out, hey, how are we going to initiate this wire? Or how am I going to drop off, earnest money deposit to the title company? Making that phone call to the bank is super important because banks are constantly changing their operating procedures as to how they're doing that. And every bank has their own way of doing it. Some banks are allowing you to initiate a wire through going through their drive-through teller, whereas before they were not doing that. Some banks are requiring you to make an appointment to have lobby hours with them to initiate a wire. Some banks are letting you do it over the phone, and some banks offer that service through their online, experience that they have through their website or an app. So, I mean, definitely having that figured out prior to driving around so that you don't potentially lose off or miss out on something because you couldn't get your earnest money deposit in time. And then, hey, they already had a backup offer and it was higher than yours,
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, making sure that you have your ducks in a row prior to and communicating with the title company. Hey, how are we going to initiate this wire? Once it happens, how do you send wiring instructions? We send our wiring instructions through our secure portal.
So, Max, question for you. So, is that kind of like a new piece of the puzzle when you've got an agent working with a buyer? Is that something that, because of the COVID, is really trying to find out from the client and the bank that they're using how that earnest money is going to be deposited?
It is, in a sense that if they're going to do a wire, they need to have the conversation with their bank, like, hey, how do I need to do this? Whereas before, it was really easy to just drop by your bank and say, hey, I need to send a wire. And they were like, all right, here you go. This is how you do it. We don't really have that openness with the banks right now. So picking up the phone and making that call is super important. And I've also heard that some local branches are not open and, their bigger main branch is the only one that's open. So if you're used to going to the bank down the road to do things and you try calling them and they're, not picking up, maybe you need to go to another bank. So that could, start a domino effect of things just taking longer and longer and longer. And then the next thing you know, 3 days have gone by and you haven't dropped off your earnest money deposit, and the listing agent's like, hey, too bad, so sad, got a backup offer, and looks like we're gonna accept it. So it's definitely very important. And on that same note, when it comes time for closing and sending in your cash to close, maybe the bank had one way of doing it when you sent in your earnest money deposit, and then they changed their operating procedures to something completely different within, the 3 weeks that it took you to get to your signing. So, I mean, definitely having that conversation and giving agents a heads up to inform their clients and educate their clients to ask questions to their banks is super important right now.
Very good. Thank you. So communication is always high on the priority list. And if there's ever a problem, you can usually take it back to how it was communicated or not communicated or miscommunicated. So communication is the key. Abbie, what about you? Do you have a tip for our clients?
Sure do. So I think the big question is, how do I get paid, right? We all want to get paid. And something that we've done in the past, but we're doing it for everyone, and it's become more of a thing, is that we're actually wiring our commissions. Yeah. So the fact that the agents don't actually have to come to closings or even drop by the office to grab their check. If they have, a disbursement authorization, a DA, from their broker, they can send that over to us, and then we have a form that they fill out authorizing us to do so. And we send them their commission checks, and it just goes right into their bank. So that makes it super convenient. And we will also do that as well. If they don't have DAs, we will actually do it for the real estate offices, because some provide those and some do not. At any rate, it's just to get them their money faster, because especially now, everybody needs and wants their money, right? And with it not being as convenient to move around during these times, it's something that we kind of pushed out. So for any agents listening to this, know that that's an option for us. And if you are not using us, I would certainly ask your title company if they'd be willing to do that for you. And if they won't, call us. We'll do it for you.
Give them a try.
That's right.
You know, are you all licensed title agents?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So the one thing that I heard you guys say earlier, and I hear you guys say this, and I have heard this many times about your company. If your team gets backed up, do you roll up your sleeves and pitch in and help them through the process?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. So you all work well together, and you're a well-oiled machine. And I love the fact that you were so poised for what happened with being in lockdown and not being able to do practices as normal. So thank you for staying in front of everything and being such good partners. Like, I work with these ladies all the time. I have so much love and respect for all of them. I feel blessed to call them my business partners, and I think you should too. So thank you for being my guest today, and we will see you out there in the community one day.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
Thank you for having us, Dusty.
Thank you, Dusty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.